Hello everybody, welcome to the latest edition of La Fidanzata d'Italia podcast. Vince here. Today we're going to be talking about some more transfer gossip going on around the Juventus world. Ins and outs, who can be leaving the club, who can be potentially coming into the club. Stay tuned, and we'll get right into that. Let's start with the transfers. And let's be honest, the big one we have to talk about, once again, is Dušan Vlahović. At this point, it feels inevitable. Vlahović has to go. He has to leave. There are serious talks about terminating his contract or putting together like a separation package if they can't offload him this summer. And, honestly, it's not even about his ability anymore. Vlahović is just an emotional player. You can get in his head very easily. And then once that happens, his game completely falls apart. He's been playing with no confidence for far too long already. I mean, I don't know what it's going to take for him to get his confidence back. And I think the only thing is for him to move to somewhere else, for him to revive his career. Because, the talent is there. There's no doubt about it. But the energy and the body language, it's just off, And we also can't ignore what happened early in the season with La Curva. That altercation changed everything. That was the moment the relationship between Vlahović and the club basically broke, I feel. There was no coming back from that. And it's a shame because I really think he could have been so much better here under different circumstances. Now, while we're on the market, talking about strikers, it's important to note that there's been a bunch of different reports from different accounts stating that, Marcus Thuram from Inter has been an option that's being considered. He has a 75 million euro release clause, but it expired this month if reports are to be believed. And, I don't think it would be a bad signing if we can land him for 35 million or less. I know it's a huge difference from the 75 million release clause that they want, but I honestly, I wouldn't pay more than 40 million for Marcus Thuram. He's 27, I think, maybe 28 this year. So, 40 million seems probably the max I would spend. But, then I think if we do that, we can extend Kolo Muani's loan, include an obligation to buy or something for like 30 or 40 for the next summer. And then we have ourselves an attack with Marcus Thuram, Kolo Muani, and Jonathan David. And honestly, the idea of having Marcus Thuram kind of excites me. The family has had great success with this club, and I feel his qualities would be pretty good. He would be pretty good to bring to Juventus, the attack for us. He has pace. He can hold the ball up. We saw that this past season. His link-up play, which we've all seen with Lautaro Martinez at Inter, is great when he's on his game. And I think that would be huge, whether he partners with Kolo Muani or Jonathan David. And then obviously Yildiz behind. So I think it would be great to see. Definitely exciting to think about that and to think about the potential that it could bring and lead to in terms of scoring goals. Next striker is Victor Osimhen. That has been a circulating rumor for the entire summer, kind of since the beginning of the year, with even Giuntoli was really big on him. But, he has a clause too, and apparently it's going to expire soon. But Fabrizio Romano just reported that Galatasaray just upped their offer from 70 million to 75 million euros with bank guarantees, according to Fabrizio Romano again. So, the hope is, the hope was, right, for Osimhen to join the Bianconeri. But, right now, the hope is very slim. The chances are very slim. He's a player who could have made a difference, I think, in our attack. Again, he's one of the best strikers in the world. But I think at this point he's probably out of reach, and I've also read from a few different sources that Aurelio De Laurentiis is trying to include a anti-Italy clause in the sale, meaning that if Galatasaray were to sell Victor Osimhen, he cannot be sold to a Serie A club, most likely Juventus, because we all know the history there. Moving on from Victor Osimhen, there's Alberto Costa. He has this player has just recently pretty much broke the Juventus news, because the past few days we've been hearing that Sporting have reportedly come in for a 20 million euro offer, 18 million euro offer for Alberto Costa, and I'm a little concerned because I thought Juventus would shut this down, but it seems that Igor Tudor has given the green light to sell him. And that's concerning. And then some reports are even suggesting that this 20 million euros that they're going to sell Alberto Costa for is to help fund a move for Chico Conceição. But before they were saying that Conceição's, to buy him outright wasn't contingent on selling anybody. So I'm a little concerned. This conflicting reports, but the most concerning is that I've been reading from a lot of sources that Tudor has given the green light to sell him. This kid's 19 years old. He's a right back. He just came onto the scene. He burst onto the scene. Actually, he's one of our best players on the field, if we're being honest. And you're going to sell him for 20 million euros? That's concerning. And then he also gave the okay to sell Fabio Miretti, another Italian youngster who I think would be one of our better midfielders, who should have been playing this year, but was pushed out by Thiago Motta. And now apparently he's going to be pushed out by Tudor and the management. This is also concerning. I don't know what the logic is behind this. I really don't. Meanwhile, Timothy Weah being linked to Marseille, and it sounds like the player wants to move. Okay, especially after that whole thing happened with the Premier League move that between him and Mbangula for like 20 million for the two of them, and or 15 million for the two of them, and it kind of caused some turmoil between Timothy Weah and Juventus. So, but 15 million euros right now is the number being thrown around for Weah. But the reports lately are suggesting that if Alberto Costa is to leave, then maybe Timothy Weah won't leave because we're going to be in trouble for the fullback position. The only way we would let Timothy Weah leave, apparently, is that if they get like another 20 million. But that would be 40 million to sign two fullbacks. I don't know how likely that would be, given our history with buying players and the way teams don't want to sell to us and they inflate their prices to sell to us. So that would be a little concerning. I feel like we should keep Alberto Costa. If we can get 15 million for Timothy Weah, fine. That's cool. And you add that to a handful of names floating in the rumor mill, and here's some more. You got Granit Xhaka, 32-year-old midfielder. Milan linked. That apparently fell through. Now all of a sudden Tudor's high on him. Wants him apparently, according to all these reports, to play in the center mid. You got Mbangula, like I mentioned before. He's on his way out. Probably Tudor pushing him out. Another youngster with some potential. I feel like they should at least try to loan him out. Get him some more game time somewhere else. See where that lands. Maybe he can come back and be a starter. He scored some important goals for us this season. Let's not forget. Nico Gonzalez, another player that's in the headlines. Possibly a move to Saudi for 30 million euros. I don't know. That's the reports I'm getting. If we can get 30 to 40 million for Nico Gonzalez to go to Saudi, I think I would take it because it's clear that this shirt weighs heavy for Nico. I don't know if it was because the coaching and stuff. So maybe this season, fresh start, fresh management, under Igor Tudor, with the roles that he could play behind the striker, maybe he could thrive a little bit. So I wouldn't be opposed to keeping him, but also if an offer for 40 million euros comes in, I think I would take it. Now let's move on to Kostic. Filip Kostic, this guy. This guy apparently might get a renewal because apparently he just has been convincing Tudor, if reports are to be correct. How? Convincing him with what? Those performances against Manchester City and Real Madrid? They were awful. He got smoked every time. It was like watching Lloyd Kelly out there. This guy's past 30 years old. He's past his prime. All right, we got him for cheap. Fine, you got to cut losses with this guy. But today I was reading this morning that there are some reports that Atalanta are interested in him. I hope this is true because the reports also suggest that if a good offer comes in, then Juve won't refuse it, even though Tudor apparently wants him. Again, I can't understand for the life of me why he wants him, but whatever. Then we got Milik, Arkadiusz Milik. I haven't seen too much on this guy, but I hope he gets sold or his contract gets terminated, as I mentioned before. But I saw one source, it was a Juve account or something like that, reporting that, Milik might get a renewal or something like that. I really hope not. This guy hasn't played in 2 years. He's done. Just terminate his contract, okay? He's not going to sign with anybody. Now let's move on to Douglas Luiz. Another player who I feel was not treated right since his arrival. When he played the 45 minutes in the preseason game, again, I know it wasn't against great competition, but it doesn't matter because based on his performances against other competition in the Serie A and the lower level teams, This performance, I thought, was one of his best performances in a Juve shirt, if not the best, for that 45 minutes. I mean, he was creative. Again, I'm not going to get into that. I mentioned that in the other podcast, but I think it would be a mistake to sell him so soon, especially if they have to depart with him for like a low fee of like 20 million euros or something. And I wish Tudor would give him a chance, but it's not going to happen. Tudor wants him out. The club management already told him that he has to find a solution. So Douglas Luiz is on the way out. And today I read a report, if it's to be believed, that West Ham are apparently negotiating for a 40 million euro fee for Douglas Luiz. And if that's the case, I guess whatever, you take your 10 million euro loss or whatever on the season and just part ways with him if you're not going to use him. I mean, it's a shame. This guy's wasted talent on the bench. Now let's move on to a name that might be familiar to the Juventini in the transfer market, and that is Adeyemi from Borussia Dortmund. There's been some reports that have linked him or resurged the talks for the club, that sparked the interest that the club is going to sign him again. But there has been a report since all those other reports came out the other day that saying that this is not even true, that Adeyemi, Juventus have not even offered for Adeyemi or open talks for Adeyemi. So I don't know. I mean, the thought was if they can't sign Kolo Muani, I think it was, or another striker, they would sign Adeyemi to replace him. They're totally different players. I mean, Adeyemi's a winger. We don't really have that type of position under Igor Tudor. So what are you going to play him as, a wing back? I mean, he plays a 3-4-2-1, so he's not going to play wide. You're going to give him freedom in the middle to like roam around. I don't know. I just don't see Adeyemi being a good fit right now under Tudor's system. The next winger that we have to talk about, or he can even play under the striker, so I guess not. This would potentially fit Tudor's formation, is Jadon Sancho, another name that was linked with us last summer, but never materialized. There has been so many reports this past week. Jadon Sancho so close, Jadon Sancho deal done, this and that. Fabrizio Romano came out and said, while Juventus have open talks, they will not pay that salary of his. So unless he takes a significant pay cut, this move is not going to materialize. Apparently, the transfer fee is not the issue for Juventus. So the 20 million euro is not the issue for Juventus. They can pay that. The issue is the salary. Juventus don't want to offer him more than 6 million euros, according to reports, which is a lot for Jadon Sancho. But I think he's a good player. So I think if they can get him for between 5 and 6 million, I don't think it would be bad, especially for 20 million euro if you sign him for, I think he can be pretty good. He's a tricky player. He's a creative player. I think it would bring something to our attack. Now let's move on to the defense. Defensively, we're being linked with Miguel Gutierrez as a wing back, Balerdi, and David Hancho to reinforce the back line. You're going to sell Alberto Costa to bring in Miguel Gutierrez or Balerdi to play in that position, potentially. And then what about a center back? You're going to bring in David Hancho. I mean, I guess Hancho I wouldn't be mad with, because he's center back. He's not terrible. He's better than Kelly. I mean, let's be honest. It's a big upgrade on Lloyd Kelly. So, I mean, if they were to bring in David Hancho, I wouldn't be mad, because for him to partner with Bremer, and Gatti. That I think would be a pretty good back three. The issue I have is the wing backs. So, I don't like Balerdi. And I don't know much about Miguel Gutierrez to believe that he's going to make a difference, But if we can get him for cheap, Miguel Gutierrez would be a player that I would pursue ahead of the others first as a wing back, There is also some good news on the defensive front. Federico Gatti is set to renew his contract, according to reports. And reports are saying that he's going to be making around 2.5 million a year if he signs his contract, and it's going to be signed through 2030. I love that. Gatti's an Italian international. We need more of these long-term moves. All right. Now, moving on from the players, we're going to talk about the new technical director that has been appointed by Comoli, and that is Francois Modesto, 46-year-old former player, mostly defensive midfielder in his playing days. He will officially start July 24th. And with his role as technical director, he'll be helping with planning, player planning, the club direction, daily operations, stuff like that. We're still waiting, though, to hear an official word on the sporting director appointment. So, when that comes through, I'll let you guys know. Now let's move on from the transfers and talk about the elephant in the room. Igor Tudor. I've got to say, I am very nervous. Really, really nervous about this season, about the direction that the club is taking, the management change. I don't know what to expect. All I know is I'm very nervous given the recent reports I'm reading about Igor Tudor's decisions with players. All right? We're in this weird limbo right now where Comoli is technically still running things, you know, and while he's just put Modesto in place, we're still lacking complete structure. All right? Tudor is basically stepped into a storm. So I can't really blame him too much, but if the reports are true again about the players that he wants to offload and bring in, it's concerning. You know, honestly, if those were to be true, I'm not sure he's the right guy to handle this situation. You know, we've already seen him make some strange decisions on the transfer front, as I mentioned earlier. He's apparently approving sales of young talents like Alberto Costa and Miretti, while wanting to keep Filip Kostic, which makes absolute zero sense to me. What does he see in Filip Kostic that justifies keeping this guy at the expense of your youth players who are better than him? It's so frustrating. It really is. You know, then there's this 3-4-2-1 formation. You know, I tried to like it. I don't like it. You know, I've tried to like it since he's been appointed, but I just don't. That's the bottom line. You know, the only positive from this formation and Igor Tudor is that Yildiz has been playing insane in it. So I guess that's the plus. So, you know, what does that mean? Do we ride it, you know, since it brings the best out of our star boy who we plan to build the team around? Maybe. But I just don't think we have the players for it. You need specific profiles to make this system work. And we're not built for that right now. And I don't think we have the money to build for that right now. And I'm just being honest. I don't like 3 at the back unless Conte's managing it for us. I mean, we've seen managers try 3 at the back. Allegri did it well, actually, because we had the players for it. And Conte did it well. He built it. He built his team around the 3-back system like he's doing at Napoli now. He's taking the players that he wants that are going to be good in that system. I don't know if Tudor has experience building a system like that. We'll see. But otherwise, again, I think we should stay away from the 3-4-2 or 3-back system with these players that we have. But it's not going to happen with Tudor. Tudor is going to go with 3-back, so it is what it is. And, you know, I really don't understand why the club didn't go for Roberto Mancini instead of Tudor. You know, I like Tudor. I appreciate his history in the black and white colors. You know, I appreciate the enthusiasm he brings. You know, the grit that he brings, the green that he brings to the locker room and to the player and brings out of the player. So I do appreciate that. But what is the long-term vision here under Tudor? Because I don't see it. And, you know, not even just Tudor, but the club, long-term vision of the club. I don't see it, and I fear that this season could go south very fast, whether it's for Igor Tudor or Juventus, either one. And what's the root of all this, though? The ownership. It has to be the ownership. You know, I've tried to give Elkan the benefit of the doubt. I really have. But these decisions are just baffling. They really are. I mean, I haven't seen anything we're in July, mid-July now, almost. And I haven't seen any promising moves. The only promising move we made is Jonathan David, and it took forever to sign him. There was worry that we were going to lose him. I was worried we were going to lose him to somebody else. We need Andrea Agnelli back. That's the bottom line, okay? That's what I'm getting at here. You know, or at this point, they need to just sell the team to a rich owner from Saudi or something else so we can become like a PSG or a Manchester City, something like that. You know, because this is just ridiculous. You know, moving on from that, if Tudor ends up putting Kostic on the left wing and giving the okay to sell Alberto Costa, shifting Cambiaso to the right, I'm going to lose my mind. I really will. I'm like hanging by a thread with this team. I really am. You know, the left back issue could have been solved immediately when Theo Hernandez hit the market. And he was stalling. The moves to Saudi were stalling. He wasn't sure he wanted to go. He was waiting for a top club. And he went for 25 million euros to the Saudi club. You're telling me we couldn't match that with all the time he took to stall the negotiations between the Saudi clubs? Come on, though. But now you want to sell him and bring in Miguel Gutierrez and Balerdi. Are you serious? It's a joke. And you're going to put Kostic on that side. You think Kostic is much better than Theo Hernandez? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Again, hanging by a thread with these signings. Let's move on to the defense now. And let's talk reality, okay? Do we really think that this back line right now can hold up in the Serie A and the Champions League? Bremer's the only true capable center back we have right now. And Tudor won't even use Rugani. He was forced to use Rugani against Real Madrid, and I thought he played well, but he's not. And then after that game, there's reports that he's going to leave. They want to sell him. So who's left out of that? Lloyd Kelly, who Tudor prefers, and I can't stand watching him because he's terrible. He gets killed every time somebody goes 1v1 against him, almost every time. Gatti, who I like, but he suddenly seems out of favor, and he hasn't been playing well since Tudor took over. But maybe he can rekindle his form, and we can have a good center back there. David Hancho, the guy we're going to sign. Balerdi, the other guy we're going to sign. Those guys aren't going to cut it. Maybe Hancho, maybe. But that's our plan? You want to make moves to be the best team again and take this leap to the top of the summit with those kind of signings and players? We got to be real here, all right? The midfield. Again, absolutely no clarity. They want Xhaka. Okay. You get Xhaka, who are you going to bench? Locatelli? How does that make any sense? Locatelli's an Italian. He should be an Italian international. The guy is still in his prime. The guy he works his butt off for this shirt. He's a better player than Xhaka. I think Xhaka performs for his country. We've seen it. I don't think Xhaka's a club player. Xhaka has, to me, I feel like Xhaka's flopped compared to what people make him out that he could be or to be. Because when we see him play for his country, then yes, he's a great player. But he doesn't put on that same consistent performance when he plays for his club teams. And that's the problem I have here. So what are you going to spend? 20 million euros to sign Xhaka? And you could have signed Theo Hernandez for 25. Now we'll have to wait to see what lineup Tudor feels on day one of the Serie A. Or even the preseason. I want to see what he lines up with. This is ridiculous. But the way I see this going, I don't see us competing for a Serie A title. I don't even think we're going to make top 4 at this rate. And we may not even make it past the Champions League group stage with these players and the stuff that we're doing to offload these young players. Other clubs are moving with purpose, with a plan, with precision. And what about us? We're just collecting random players and selling our best ones, our best talents. How does that make any sense? We already lost multiple youngsters, some with big money moves away from those clubs they went to. And we're about to make the same mistake with Miretti. Watch, they're going to sell him for 10, 15 million euros now, and then watch him go 50 million euros later. It's the same story with a different name. I'm tired of it with this team. Look at Barcelona. Barcelona brings players from their youth and they play them. And look what happens. Look at all their players. Pedri, Lamine Yamal. These are all star players and they develop them and they bring them up. And they play at a young age, even in the top league. But no, in Italy, we can't play 18-year-olds in the league. There's not enough experience. We need a 35-year-old. We need a 40-year-old Edin Dzeko to come in. Are you kidding me? I just don't see the big picture. I don't see the plan here right now. If somebody knows, just explain it to me. Send me a DM message or something. Tell me if I'm missing something, because this just doesn't make any sense. I'm so frustrated. I'm trying to have hope. I've been trying to have hope, but the more I talk about it, the more I lose hope, and I don't see a plan. I know everybody wants to win immediately, but if we don't have the money to do that right now, to buy a piece in every position or multiple positions, why are we just spending recklessly instead of investing in 1 or 2 quality long-term pieces? Let's say you have 80 million that you got. You got 60 million apparently from this season in Serie A or whatever. You just got 30 million from the Club World Cup. Let's just say, hypothetically speaking, you have 90 million to work with. So what are you going to do? You're going to sign mediocre. Let's sign Miguel Gutierrez for 20. Let's sign Balerdi for another 20. Let's sign Hancho for 30. So you're going to sign all these mediocre players and sell the players you have right now. For what? Just to be in the same situation you're in last time? Don't sell the players you have right now, except for the ones that really need to go, like Lloyd Kelly, for one. And then bring in quality pieces. And then you move to sell players. Then you see if players fit into your position. You got 90 million. Look, that 90 million, you could have signed... Again, Theo Hernandez in his prime, and that would have been a good signing out of that 90 million. You could have spent 25 right there. Then you could have built on pieces you actually need. You actually need defenders. Who's a top defender that you can go after, that you want? I mean, okay, there's been a bunch of different conversations had about Araujo at Barcelona, about some think he's a good defender, some think he's terrible, whatever, blah, blah. Regardless, he's still in his prime, 25 years old. That's a quality signing to me. I like him. I think he's a good center back, one of the better ones. I think he would be one of our center backs, the best ones, aside from Bremer. So what did Barcelona want from 30? That I read this offseason, 50? Okay, so you make a spend right there because you need that piece. You need a center back. That is a huge piece. So you spend 50 there. You spend 25 on the wing over there. You still have the depth with Alberto Costa. You shift Cambiaso to the right. If he gets outplayed by Alberto Costa, you shift him to the bench. You play Alberto Costa and Theo Hernandez on the left-hand side. And then you have depth coming in too. It just doesn't make sense to me. But what are you going to do? You're going to sell our talent and not bring in anybody. You're going to bring in a no-name. Or not even a no-name. A guy who hasn't proven himself. Or is only proven to be mediocre. You know, if I didn't want to say this, but I feel worse than we did when we were in Serie B. I mean, it's ridiculous. It really is. I mean, we had a better team in Serie B than we do now. It's a joke. It is an absolute joke. You know, last year, again, I already said my piece about Giuntiglia, but I got to say it again. He completely mismanaged our transfer window. You know, everything was loan with an option or obligation to buy. It totally screws us over. You know, that pisses me off the way they do business like that, because now all of these options have come due. Look, where's the money going to come from? Now, by signing these players that you have the options for, you have the obligation to buy, we essentially don't have any money for new signings coming in, because these players, even though you're spending the new money now, you're buying the same players that we signed last season. So they're not new signings. We already committed to Nico Gonzalez, whatever it was, around 40 million. Di Gregorio, I have to say, he has impressed me. I think he's won me over. I'm okay if we don't get Donnarumma and we keep Di Gregorio. He's proven that to me, so I think he's fine. Lloyd Kelly, you spent in 20 million in January. Possibly now Kolo Muani, you spent 20 million on his loan, 10 20 million on his loan last year. Now you're going to spend another 10 20 million on his loan this year. For what? To put an obligation for 40 million? So what are you going to pay for this guy in total? 80 million euros for Kolo Muani? I like Kolo Muani, but you can't pay more than 50 million for this guy. PSG's trying to get rid of him. And now you're even going to possibly sign Chico for 25 million euro. Again, these are all players we already have that were signed last season. They were supposed to be new signings last year. But now we're spending the money we have this season, or this offseason, right now on these players. So what are we left with? And but you know, and aside from that, what does Giuntiglia think the smart thing to do is, even at that time? Terminate Danilo's contract. Mid-season, mind you. A guy we actually needed in a center back position we actually needed. How is that a smart decision? You know, there was no plan. It's, you know, he had a fluke season at Napoli, Giuntiglia, with those. He's lucky Spalletti was there to win him that Scudetto. Let's be honest, because Giuntiglia doesn't know what he's doing. He cannot be a top level sporting director. It's evident by what he did with us. And you know, if he is successful elsewhere, I am even more further going to believe that Giuntiglia was sent here to sabotage Juventus along with Thiago Motta. I believe it. And we were stupid enough to let him get in here. So here's where I land on all this, okay? I just hope this season doesn't break me, because I'm like I said, I'm hanging by a thread with this team and the decisions being made by management. Because if we're not careful, we're about to watch this club fall further behind while others are moving ahead. And I want to be wrong about this. I want this to click. I really do with everything that's happening. But right now, I do not see a clear strategy. I do not see alignment. I do not see how we get back to where we belong unless something changes fast. All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode. Look, I know this one was a bit heavy. I got a little passionate about this one, but this is where we are right now. And as fans, we've been through a lot, and we've seen the highs. Okay? That's why this moment feels so frustrating, because we know what Juventus should be and what it could be. And there's still time for this club to right the ship, okay? But decisions made in the next few weeks on the market with the management, with this roster, that's going to shape our entire season, maybe even the next few years. So, as always, I'll be watching, I'll be hoping, and I'll be here to break it all down with you. Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow, share the story, share the episode if you're enjoying it, and let me know your thoughts, okay? What do you think about Tudor, the transfer window, and where the club is heading? Until next time, fino alla fine, forza Juve.